want to reach him. Stephen, your family's from Chile. From Chile?
Yeah,
Where's?
yeah. My father is from Berlin and
Uh-huh.
escaped
Yeah.
and ended up in Santiago. And my mom's family were all Austrian Jews who ended up in Santiago. But all of my relatives, my aunts, my uncles, my cousins, they're all in Chile.
Yeah.
We're
That's very common. There are two different ways that Jews ended up, obviously, in. So, like Noemi Maslia, who is sometimes in our
Cuban,
class, is
Cuban.
Cuban, but her family was from France, and after the
Yes,
war, but other people,
And Turkey. Her father is Turkish.
which is where the
Yeah,
Maslia comes from.
right.
So Cuba, they got to Cuba after the Holocaust. Then
Rabbi,
there are Jews who were, um, uh, who was I talking to whose family got to Cuba in the early part of the 1900s?
Rabbi,
Somebody, yes, oops. Hi,
although
Harold.
although
Hi,
playing
Harold. Harold is my
Glo-
timekeeper.
global Jewish geography is fabulous, I think we're going to call time, and we have some
Yes.
fabulous music to start our session today with the inimitable Adria Benjamin.
Ugh. Just to be clear, I'm from Sheepshead Bay. I just want to put that out there so there's no doubt. Okay. Yesterday in class, Rabbi Kleinbaum mentioned the moment when Debbie Friedman, I guess, first gathered with uh, lesbians, gay women, and played for the first time the Chilach.
And gay men.
And gay men, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
So I thought in tribute to that moment, we could listen
Oh,
to
beautiful.
the Chilach.
Beautiful.
So here we go.
Beautiful. Just
Wow.
gorgeous. By the way, when she first played it for us, I taped it. I had a cassette tape recorder and taped it. And for years, I had that cassette tape. And somehow, in all my many moves, it's disappeared, which I feel one of those things that maybe it'll emerge someday from the bottom of a box, somewhere. But who knows?
So, Rabbi, I think we're going to start with something a little different today for a second. But I have a question. It looks on my screen as if you have a snow shovel braced against your door there. And I was wondering if you're expecting snow up north.
No, you know what that is?
What?
That's what I can bang this smoke alarm when that stupid battery goes off. I can get the sound off. I still haven't got my super up to get the new battery in there. So basically when it starts beeping, and by the way, just as Randy was going on Morning Joe this morning, it started beeping. So I ran in here with but I'll put it out, I'll put it away. So it's just
It's fine. It's fine.
a pole.
Oh,
So I
okay.
can reach the thing and turn it off.
All right. And I do have to have a shout out to Marilyn Michon's fabulous hat. It reminds me of
Let's see, Marilyn Michon. Marilyn, speak so I could see you. Where
yes,
are
Marilyn.
you? Say
but
something.
the blue hat, you had your blue there. Okay, her blue hat.
Beautiful, Marilyn.
So, Rabbi, I have heard that there may be some people in this class who have not yet registered for our high holiday services.
Right.
Do you think we should give them a little nudge? Should we show a little video?
So we're going to show a video that Harold and I recorded. Was it last year or 2 years ago?
Last year.
Last year. And then we're going to talk a little bit about high holidays at CBST and then jump into Psalm 27.
Oh no. You know what? Maybe I should share that. It's catching. I will share that later instead of. But why don't
we put it on? You can put it on Facebook.
I'll put it on Facebook so people can see it, and I'll turn it over to you.
Great.
Tell people about why they should be registering right now for the high holiday services. And I'll
So,
put those
folks,
in the chat.
Rosh Hashanah is 2 weeks, I think. Is that right? Am I correct about that? Let's look at the calendar right now. Today is September 3rd. Rosh Hashanah is September 18th. So 2 weeks from this Friday night is Rosh Hashanah. And I think it's safe to say the Jewish people has never quite experienced a Rosh Hashanah like this one. We've had worse, but not quite but this is going to be an unusual season. And the pandemic is only one of the plagues that we're facing, as everybody knows. And the level of anxiety and concern and fear that everyone is feeling is so real. And it's been very moving for me all these months for our class to be learning together. For those of you who've joined us recently, you're so welcome to this community of learners. And because we're going online this year entirely for the High Holy Days, we need folks to register in advance. And if you're inviting people to join, people need to register in advance. It is free of charge. Of course, we want people to donate if they can, but there is no requirement. And then we will send out to everybody who's registered exactly how each service will be presented. We're still honestly working some of it out. And you'll see over the course of the next 2 weeks, a beautiful new social media campaign that, with deep gratitude to Sherry and Simon within their generosity, we want to be able to reach new people who have never been to CBST before and get them to register and join us for these days of awe. They're going to be different, and everybody's going to have to live a little bit with our grief at it not being what we have known in the past and not having the sounds of 4,000 people. But we're going to have to overcome that in order to achieve a new kind of holiness. So watch out on social media for all different kinds of things that are going to come out. We've invited different people in the community to tell us what CBST means to them, not people necessarily who you might even think of as CBST members. Andy Cohen made a beautiful video this week, why CBST is meaningful to him. It's so beautiful to see him speak about it. Benj Pasek, who is the 35-year-old Tony Award-winning composer of Dear Evan Hansen, came to CBST's High Holidays last year and reached out to me right after the High Holidays to tell me that he had never experienced a spiritual moment like that in his life. Whoops. So we've asked Benj Pasek is going to make a video for CBST, just 60 seconds, just saying something. So watch for these things. Some of our members like Narda Alcorn and Shelley Adderman with their 2 kids are going to talk about what CBST means to them. And here's this family whose kids were born, adopted, raised, bar mitzvah, everything at CBST, to show the kind of faces of CBST that we are Jews of color, as well as we talked about, in Jews of all different kinds of backgrounds. Josh Lehrer and Jeffrey Seller and a few other CBST folks. I think we're making a total, I can't remember how many we're making, but watch out for these videos and share them and encourage people to register at CBST. It is free of charge. As I said, of course, we're going to ask people to donate if they can, because guess what? We have no sugar daddy that makes CBST happen. We only exist because everybody does what we can, including me. I'm a contributor to CBST. I encourage every staff person to contribute. I encourage everybody to contribute, whether it's $18 or $18,000, or God willing, we even ask people if they can do more than that, but all of us can make this happen. But the days of awe are this very personal journey we take in the middle of this vast community. So I just invite everybody to join us. If you haven't already registered, I think, Harold, would you put the link in the chat?
I've been putting it in continually.
Great. And it's on the CBST website. And we are probably going to be using a new platform called Vimeo. As I described, we're not going to be using, which is a higher quality video, so that the visual will be much richer. And, you know, we're trying to make it as pretty as possible because, and we want people to join for all or as little as you want. What makes it meaningful for you? How do we do personal work in the middle of a world on fire? How do we think of, we can't give up on always reaching for our aspirationally biggest selves, no matter what the world around us looks like. So join with us, and I'm thrilled to be on this journey with all of you.
Thank you, Rabbi. And I'll continue to put that in the chat. And now, what would you like me to share on screen?
Let's start looking at altar. Let's start with
Okay.
altar, and then we're going to start moving through. By the way, I've asked a friend of mine from Israel, whom many of you know, and Harold, we need to schedule this, Noah Satat, to come on one morning to talk about what's happening to queer Hebrew in Israel.
Really?
And what's happening with, so somebody wrote me today and put in Hebrew, the Hebrew name Elohim, and wrote it Elohima to make it feminized, which is fascinating. So we'll set a date for her to talk to us, because as we've talked about how gendered Hebrew is, modern Hebrew speakers are really doing some fascinating things with Hebrew gender queerifying Hebrew. So let's look at altar. Oops, I
Can you
forgot.
see altar on the screen now?
No.
No. Okay. Let me,
No, we can't.
okay. Hold on a second.
And we've asked people to submit, as you're thinking of or moved or inspired, to be writing your own Psalm 27s. Annika, you're accepting them, right?
Yes.
Okay.
And
Yes,
I
I
will
am.
send a note about that. So we can see it on the screen now? Altar 27?
Yes.
Okay.
Now I'm going to also have, and if you have a Hebrew in front of you, it's good to have the Hebrew. I know, Harold, thank you so much for sending out everything. So we're going to look at things, and I'm going to go back and forth a little bit. So if you have other copies in front of you, that would be fantastic. But let's start. I like to start with the altar because, as I've said over and over again, altar works very hard to try and do something close to the biblical Hebrew. And before we jump off into those who feel no need to stay close to it, which I appreciate, let's just look. So David. So you see the way that altar sees for David is very much a superscription, separated from the psalm itself. Does not see David as part of the first verse. So an altar sees the Yud He Vav He. He translates it with Lord with the
Initial caps, small caps.
Initial cap, all caps, all
Small
small
cap.
caps, small
Initial cap,
caps,
small
Lord, to demonstrate this is not any name of just any old name of God. It's the big one. So my light and my rescue. And remember, we talked that for some of the Mefarshim, my light refers to Rosh Hashanah and Yishi refers to Yom Kippur. So Yud He Vav He is my light and my rescue. Rescue is an interesting word, and we'll see how that plays out in altars. Whom should I fear? So he sees this as two different verses in two different full sentences, not a comma, not a colon, but the way he prints it shows you that these are two phrases of one verse. Do you see that, what he's doing there? He uses punctuation to make them separate sentences, but his layout keeps it clear that this is one verse in the Hebrew. So it's antiphonal. The Lord is my light and my rescue. Whom should I fear? The Lord is my life stronghold, period. Of whom should I be afraid? So his layout really clarifies the rhythm of these two verses of the rhythm of for the first verse, not 2 verses. This is all verse 1. But the layout, I love the way he does the layout because it shows you the rhythm of verse 1. The Lord is my light and my rescue. Whom should I fear? The Lord is my life stronghold, not strangle, stronghold. Of whom should I be afraid? You see how beautiful that is? I like that very much. I think he really shows you, and that is very much within the Hebrew. Now, evildoers, in general, alter translates any use of the resh ayin noun, which we've seen many times. This is a very different, little bit different because it's mireim, not just bad people, but it seems he's increasing it to this phrase, evildoers. When they draw close to me to eat my flesh, my foes and my enemies are they trip and they fall. So you see, he builds into his translation the rhythm that shows for the way he's reading it is this, what do you call that? It's not a hyphen, it's
That's
a
M dash.
What's it called?
It's an M dash. It's a
M.
4. It's a longer than a hyphen. It's an M, like EM dash.
An M dash, because it has a sense of it going off, right? So it's ... when evildoers draw me to eat my flesh, when my foes and my enemies are they, what will happen? He's reading the verses saying, when they try to do that, they will trip and fall. Though a camp is marshaled against me, my heart shall not fear. Though battle is roused against me, nonetheless do I trust. And you see that altar uses a lot of the me's and the I's to try and my's, to try and, which I don't think it's possible because as we showed that the pronominal suffix, the pronoun ending of a word for me or I in Hebrew, when you read this psalm, you hear it over and over and over and over again, the E ending at the end of verbs and nouns. Okay, let's go to the next. Okay, so those are the first 3 verses, which all are about when these bad things are about to happen, somehow I will have the protection of the Holy One. And then it goes into this most famous of verses, of course. One thing I ask, and remember we talked about the rhythm of the first 3 verses, 5, 5, 6, 6, 7, 7, and then the number 1 for unity, for unification. One thing I ask of the Lord, and remember we have this, you'll see, and if you count Lord here, you'll see it 13 times in the Psalm. One thing I ask of the Lord, it is this that I seek, M dash, that I dwell in the house of the Lord all the days of my life, to behold the Lord's sweetness, to gaze on his palace. So again, house and palace are here as references to each other. And then in verse 5, we have the sukkah. He translates it as shelter. And that has a sense of impermanence and of covering, but not a permanent kind of place. He hides me in his shelter on the day of evil. He conceals me in the recess of his tent. On a rock he raises up. So as one of you pointed out so beautifully, it's not that all of a sudden now going into the second part of the Psalm, it's not that we'll be protected. It's not that bad things won't happen, but somehow by being connected to the holiness, to the goodness, to the things that make for justice and rightness and God's holiness, it'll be a personal sense of protection, not necessarily bad things aren't going to happen. And now my head rises over my enemies around me. So in other words, bad things are happening, but somehow I have strength. I'm not being crushed by it. Okay, let's continue through. I'm going to just read through altar before I stop. Let me offer in his tent sacrifices with joyous shouts. Let me sing and hymn to the Lord. Again, all those words for music. Very important that the shift to even now I'm in a tent, now I'm in the ohel, in the impermanent, but I am able, no, even though there are enemies surrounding me. Remember what the setting is here. Enemies are all around me. I'm still going to sing. I'm still going to have joy. I'm going to still express gratitude. And then we have this, what we talked about in the Hebrew, this very beautiful Shema Yud He Vav He. Hear Adonai Koli. And this is, remember, we'll sing this on Slichot and throughout the days of awe. Shema Kolenu is in the plural. Hear our voice. You know, Shema, I can't sing it. You know it all. I'm not going to sing it. Shema Kolenu, hear our voice. This is another way that for me, this psalm resonates with the season. It has this very powerful beseeching. Hear Shema Koli, listen to my voice. Ekra, when I call out. In other words, don't let me go unheard or invisible. Don't make me invisible. V'choneni, be gracious to me, be gentle with me. V'aneni, and answer me. Lecha amar libi, bakshi fanai. Of you, my heart. Bakshi, lecha amar libi, my heart, libi, my heart. That's so, my heart, all of that energy, my heart says, seek my face, et panecha yud he vav he avakesh, I will seek. Now, where else do we have the word avakesh in this psalm? If you look back up on verse Pasuk Daled, verse 4, Achat sha'alti me'et yud he vav he shivti ota avakesh. One thing I ask. So this one thing I ask, this is the same, that the avakesh is the same shoresh as bakshu fanai avakesh. One thing I'm asking over and over again, the same thing is being asked, which is ultimately the psalm is asking about being, as I've said, there are different ways to be in relationship to God, I believe. One is to be experiencing God's absence, and one is to experience God's presence. It doesn't mean God does away with bad things. It means, are we filled with those things which bring holiness to the world, or are we filled with the things that bring ugliness and evil to the world? Of you, my heart said, seek my face, your face, meaning your presence, I do seek. Do not hide your face from me. Do not turn your servant away in wrath. There is such wistful sweetness to this. You are my help. Abandon me not, nor forsake me. These are words we'll see again in the Shema Kolenu when we come to that. And look for that when we arrive at Shema Kolenu. These words are echoed in the Shema Kolenu prayer of the days of awe. Abandon me not, nor forsake me, God of my rescue, which goes back to how he translates the first. He says, Ishi in the beginning is rescue. And here in verse 9, he said, Elohei Ishi is repeated, God of my rescue. Though my father and mother forsook me, let's abandon me as we do, the Lord will gather me in. Yud He Vav He. Okay, 11. Teach me again, the Horeini, remember that word for teach here is the same word for Torah. It's the same word for Horim, for parents. Guide me, teach me, O Lord, your way. Lead me on a level path, straight path, direct path, an honest path. Because of my adversaries. In other words, the world around me is full of evil. The world around me is not fair. The world around me is not just. The world around me is not honest. Even so, give me the strength. Teach me, O Lord, how to go on an honest path, even though the adversaries around me do not follow such a path. I don't even know what a maw is, but do not put me in the maw of my foes.
Jaw, it's like jaw or
Jaw,
mouth.
okay. Jaw and mouth, okay. For false witnesses rose against me, outrageous deposers. We talked about how the words here were not so clear in some of the Hebrew. I love this, outrageous deposers. And remember when we came to that word, I asked Yael what she would say in modern Hebrew. because the word, let me catch the word in the Hebrew, shorarai is a very strange word. Sorarai is usually used, so he's using adversaries here. It's a different kind of adversaries. So, but now we get to the 13:14, which I find over and over again deeply moving. If but I trust to see the Lord's goodness. In other words, all that is holy, all that is good, all that is just, all the good things in the land of the living, hope for the Lord. Let your heart be firm and bold and hope for the Lord. All right, now that's altar. I'll pause now just to see if there are some few comments. Altar, as we say, stays closer to the Hebrew than the others will.
I will just point out this note about ma that you called out.
Yes.
The altar tells us several times that the most literal meaning of nefesh seems to be throat, like mayim ad nefesh in the Jonah story, water up to your neck.
Yep.
So we're going back to the beginning of altar. Is that what you'd like to do?
Yeah, and well, I'm going to just read you from the Shema Kolenu in the Machzor. You could write down the number to look, the page. It's on page 233 in the Machzor we'll be using. So it says in the Shema Kolenu, don't cast us away from us. Al tashlichenu milfanecha, from your face or from in front of you. Al tashlichenu. And then it does this repeated, do not abandon us, don't leave us, al ta'azvenu v'al titshenu. So there's a very similar rhythm in the Shema Kolenu as some of the verses of Psalm 27. So let's just stop and see if there are any questions or comments.
Okay, hold on, I'm stopping.
How's everybody doing, okay? I know that was kind of a quick overview, but good.
All right, I'm looking in participants and Stephen Raphael has raised his hand.
My comment, isn't about altar, but it's about Gaia Bernstein. I don't know if we're there yet.
We're not there yet. We're not there yet. We'll get to Gaia Bernstein.
I'll come back.
All right, anyone else have a hand they would like to raise for a comment? Let's see. And then, no, I think everyone was just following along with, okay, Karen Kropp.
Yeah, I was just going to note that I think that the way that altar lays it out makes it easier to understand the different voices that are being heard, like the first three verses versus the next three verses. And I think it just gives it more shape to what the perspective is on the voice that's speaking in it.
I agree.
I liked it.
I think it's one of the strengths of altar. And that's why I really think he's kind of basic to studying the Psalms. I mean, basic to studying a lot of biblical Hebrew. And you just have to pay close attention, but he's very careful. His layout, and I kind of wish they had spent more money on the book, honestly, because you could see that had it been done even more beautifully, it would, or maybe even in like Richard Levy's size book, so you could see the whole Psalm laid out that way. I think it would be fantastic. Because he's very careful. His layout is as important as how he translates an individual word. And that's not true for everybody, but altar really, and so it's very important when you look at altar, don't just read over the words and say, okay, what does that word mean? Why is he doing that word? But look at the layout and spend time with it. And you'll see that gives you a lot of insight. He really, really pays attention to that. And you'll learn a lot. And if you know the Hebrew and you go back and forth, you could see altar is being very, very thoughtful. And nothing's a throwaway with him. Nothing. Not a punctuation point, not a M dash, nothing about the layout is, just to fit something on a page or something. It's really thoughtful. Let's look at Fisher, because he also, I want to look at,
Shari Debbie, our native Hebrew speakers, have a note on shore. Shari Debbie, would you like to unmute yourself and tell us what you're thinking there?
I just want to say they're not native Hebrew speakers, but they are fluent Hebrew speakers.
Fluent Hebrew speakers, excuse me.
But they're fluent.
But not native. Okay.
They are Israelis, but they were not born in Israel.
I stand corrected.
Thank you. Just to it's actually not our translation, but we're looking at an art scroll of Tehillim, and one of the commentaries there says shur is to stare, So it was about that scrutinize and
So interesting. It's not a common word. It's not a word that I don't think it's found a lot in biblical Hebrew either. It's just not a common word. So that's very interesting. By the way, Shari and Debbie are moving back to Israel in the end of September, correct? So October. They're moving back to Israel in October, but they will continue to be part of this class. And by the way, they will not be our first members who live in Israel, but you will be our second. We do have we have another member who lives in Israel, and many people who are deeply connected. So we'll miss having them in New York, but we'll continue having them part of this class. And we're going to do a blessing at a Friday night service close to their move back home. Okay.
What do you want to look at next, Rabbi?
Let's look at Norman Fisher, because Norman Fisher does not worry so much about, he wants to find, which is what I encourage all of you to be doing, deep personal meaning in the Psalm. So he's less concerned than Alter is to try and stay close to the biblical Hebrew, but he wants to stay close to a personal meaning. But he also does care a lot about layout, because he's a poet and so his layout is very interesting, but it's less about making. So let's look at who would like to read this Psalm through? Since it's in English, You Are My Light.
All right, let's see who's raising her hand.
Read the whole thing through.
Yes. I don't see, Sarah Kleinbaum raised her hand first.
Beautiful.
Sarah Kleinbaum.
Hi. You are my light and my help. Whom should I fear? You are the fortress of my life. Whom should I dread? When the narrow ones gather their strength to devour me, it is they who stumble and fall. Even if a royal army were camped outside my gate, my heart would not fear. And when they struck out with terrible weapons against me, even then I trust. One thing I ask for, one thing I hope, to live in your house all the days of my life, to hold your loveliness every morning in the light of your temple dawn, till on doomful day, you secure me in your precincts, conceal me within the folds of your covering tent, place me high and safe upon a rock, my head lifted above the engulfing waves. With the joy of my heart, I will sacrifice within that billowing shelter, singing and playing my abandonment to you. Hear my voice when I raise it up. Be gracious, answer me.
Keeps on going.
Oh, okay.
Right here.
Speaking with your voice, my heart sang, seek my presence. I will. Do not hide your glowing face from me. Do not reject me in anger because of my shortcomings. You have always been for me. Don't cast me off now. Don't walk away, my helper, my friend. My mother and father forsake me, but you take me up, show me the way. Guide my steps on the clear path against the ever-present cliffs and thickets. Protect me from the noise of desire and hatefulness, from false words and shouted accusations. If I did not have faith in your rightness, then it would bloom in this living land. It is unthinkable. I wait only for you with strength and good courage. I wait only for you.
Beautiful. Thank you so much. So what do you think? Let's have some responses to this. And do you notice, first of all, what's a big difference that he does about the speaking about or to God? Notice the difference between, the first thing to notice is that the difference between Adonai, Ori, V'ishi and this version. There's no LeDavid. First of all, that's correct, Marcia. He just removes that. He doesn't think that's an important part of it. There's no reference to the LeDavid of the beginning. So he's removing that superscription.
Shep. Shep has his hand up.
Oh, it was not about this. It was, well, I guess I just wanted to mention.
Shep, we're talking about this version now. So if you
No,
don't.
okay, my hand up was about
hold
something
off
in general.
Then. Let's just talk about this.
Stacy
Okay,
Harris comments on the Fisher. Stacy, you there?
I'm sorry. I'm sort of, I'm doing work at the same time as I'm talking to you, so I apologize. So what did you say?
No,
No,
you had your
Stacy, we
hand
need
up.
anybody who has something to comment about the Norman Fisher translation.
Oh,
of
no,
Psalm
I'm so
27.
sorry. No,
Okay,
no,
that's fine.
thank you.
That's fine. That's fine.
That's fine.
Saul Zalkin, I bet you have something to say about Norman Fisher.
So verse 5, if you scroll down a little bit, Harold, all of a sudden we get this, till on a doomful day you secure me in your precincts. It's like, oh my, oh, that's a whole different point of view. Because the Hebrew doesn't say anything about a doomful day.
Yom Sarah, is it? Wait.
Yeah, I
It's
think he's
on a
doing
day of
B'yom
Eve.
Ra'ah. B'yom Ra'ah.
Yom
That's
Ra'ah.
his
Right.
translation of B'yom Ra'ah. But you're right. He's saying B'yom Ra'ah. That's how he's translating it.
Yeah, makes it different.
Yes.
Yeah.
Sarah Siegel.
Really, I just was wondering if this is the one and only psalm in the 150. It was clearest to me looking at this translation, the question, my mother and father forsake me. Is this the only place where that gets talked about, or is that?
I think so.
Okay.
I can't say with 100% certainty, but I'm pretty sure it is.
I have to say that any translation we're going to look at, this is my general comment, I'm probably that's going to be in lights. Like I can't really even see anything else but that. So here it was stark. That's all. Thanks.
So I just want to point out one thing is that he is doing, which we'll see, and this is his personal, which I love, and I want to encourage people to, how do you make this psalm meaningful to you? He takes away from the beginning, when it says in the Hebrew, Adonai Ori V'ishi, it's talking about God, right? God is my light and my help. He's speaking directly to whatever is that he takes out the word God and he says, you are my light and my help. So it's speaking directly to. The strength of that is that it's very a personal relationship, me to God. In the original Hebrew, it transitions from speaking about God to speaking directly to God, which is a very common Tehillim thing. That the psalm starts out speaking about God and then the speaker emerges into a more direct relationship. So this doesn't have that transition because Fisher starts out, you are my light and my help. But clearly Fisher is not comfortable with words like Lord or God. He's coming from that Zen Buddhist perspective, which I think a lot of us might share. So he removes that. And there's some source in the universe to whom he is appealing, which is not that traditional God. And that's very moving. He's taking a very traditional prayer and making it personally very moving. You are my light and my help. Whom should I fear? You are the fortress of my life. Whom should I dread? To whom is Norman Fisher addressing this?
Ira has his hand up.
Yes. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, because I was having some issues. So one thing I really like about Fisher, and I have the book, and I've noticed this in many of his translations, in here where he says, protect me from the noise of desire and hatefulness, from false words and shouted accusations. It's sort of more that internal, almost inner psychological stuff that, that he goes to very often. It's most likely connected to his Buddhist stance, but that's something that really struck me in this translation, in that particular part, that we didn't see in Sefaria or in Alter, because obviously it's not a literal translation from the Hebrew, but that really speaks to me.
But Ira, I agree with you, but I would argue that it's not literal, but it is in the meaning of the words. I think Fisher is actually quite close, although I agree with you that that the point, I think, for me, what Psalm 27 is saying, no matter what is happening on the outside, we have power on the inside if we're connected to that power in the universe that is the source of holiness and good. And no matter what's going on outside, and I think that's in there, I just don't think it's in a language that's 2,500 years old, so it's harder for us to access, which is why I love Fisher so much, because he gets right there with language we can relate to.
When he says something like the noise of desire,
yep,
that has a flavor all of its own.
It's a very modern, and in 1,000 years, if somebody read that, they would have no idea what that means. So that's the problem with language and this, right? It's always coming from within the speaker's cultural norm. So that's meaningful because we get that in a certain way and that's why we have to struggle with words that are 2,500 years old. And that's why I encourage people to be creative. What does it mean to you? If you were to make it meaningful, how would it be meaningful? Don't try to put yourself into 2,500 years ago. That's pretty tough. All right, a few other comments or questions. Do we have time?
Wrap up. Joan Friedman.
So, like Saul, I was very much struck by how that doomful day translation changes that section of the psalm. I mean, it's Yom Ra'ah, which can be day of chaos, going back to primordial, tohu vavohu, before, outside of life, Buddhist nothingness. But what it does is it sets up that section as when I die, this is what's going to happen. To me,
why does Doomful Day set that up to when I die?
Well, to me, the Doomful Day to me suggests death. Doom.
That's so interesting. That's so interesting.
This is the time of doom, which to me suggests death. And then he's talking about, well, when I die, I'll be within God's shelter and I'll be high on the rock and I'll be away from all of this.
Wow, that's so interesting. I've never read it that way. That's fascinating.
I never had either until I saw that. And then when you pointed out about Yom Ra'ah, I thought, well, Ra is also chaos. It's not just bad. It's also chaos. And then you get to and you said he was a Buddhist. And so that's like the Buddhist nothingness. You die and you go back into nothingness, or maybe only if you're enlightened. Otherwise, you have to stay on the cycle.
Interesting.
Of rebirth. So it seemed like that. This is what's going to happen when I die. That I'll be safe on a rock, praising God, and then after that kind of interlude, he goes back into the fray.
I've never read it that way. Fantastic.
Wow. I think we're at time, Rabbi, for Adria to play us out. So I will share the screen again with the text of the Debbie Friedman song, and thank you, Adria. I can find it here.
And just to confirm, we have class on Monday, correct?
We have class on Monday.
Okay.
And if you can't join us, it is recorded and you can listen to it after we do it live. Okay. But we'll continue with these translations.
Hold on, let me get this.
And by the way, tonight, Rabbi Rapport is doing a session. Today is September 3rd, right? I am so... Yeah. Rabbi Rapport is doing a session on how to make your home a sanctuary and how to prepare for the high holidays, since we're all creating our own sanctuaries in our homes. So look for that on the website. There's a link there. Please join us tonight.
When is that tonight?
Look on the website, Shep. Shabbat Shalom, everybody. And we have a special treat tomorrow night at services. Adria is going to be playing the Al Taster, the Debbie Friedman, at services tomorrow night. So make sure you join us 6:30 tomorrow night. And Eric Rosenbaum and Lisa Green we're gonna have a Zoneg, a Zoom Oneg. That's my idea. I like that new word. A Zoneg program after services about homelessness in New York City. It's Eric's organization, Project Renewal, which is housing now homeless folks in Hotel Lucerne on the Upper West Side, which there's a lot of controversy. But these are two CBST members who are deep in the leadership on the homeless issue in New York City and will help us understand what is going on and what can be done about it. Okay, so that's after services at 8:30 tomorrow night. There'll be a Zoom link for that we'll give out, that you go on that separately.
And Rabbi, since it's Monday and we don't have do you have a special guest for us Monday night for Meet the Machzor?
Oh, Harold, thank you. Is Harold the best? I have no memory and Harold keeps me. So Harold reached out to Rabbi Jan Erbach yesterday to ask about the question that came up in the town hall discussion Monday night about the Machzor. And then Harold and I talked about the idea of my inviting Jan Erbach to come to our town hall Monday night. She is one of the editors of the Machzor we're using, and she's really responsible. She won't say this publicly because she has to be more diplomatic, but she's really responsible for the feminism and a lot of the poetry and a lot of the contemporary nature of the Machzor. So she'll have to be diplomatic about how she says that, but I'm telling you that that's true. And as I said on Monday night, she's one of the smartest rabbis out there. I mean, and I have huge, huge, huge respect for her. I try to listen to her sermons online when I can find them. So she, thank you, Harold, for this great idea. She's going to join us Monday night to talk about the creation of the Machzor, and she can answer questions. And so that's 6 o'clock Monday night. That's for members only. But you could always join. CBST has no financial barrier to joining the synagogue. But we have these town halls now once a month for members only, by the way, which will continue through the year. And God forbid we should have another surge in New York City and we need to do it weekly again. We will do that. But right now we're set up for once a month, a town hall for members only through June. With special topics and special conversations. But this coming Monday night is about the Meeting the Machzor. Actually, that's open to everybody, right? That's not a members only.
It's everybody.
That's not a town hall. That's our regular Meet the Machzor class. So everybody's welcome to that. Sorry. As I said, my brain is just not.
All right. Okay. So on that, an early
Shabbat Shalom, everybody.
Shabbat Shalom all. Take
Shabbat
care,
Shalom.
Rabbi.
Shabbat Shalom.
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 Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom. Shabbat
Shabbat Shalom. Yeah, share the colonoscopy.
Shabbat Shalom.
Linda,
Bye.
Gary, Debbie.
Good. Devorah, I feel better.
Thanks.
Hi, Adria. You played beautifully as always.
Adria, you were
We
fabulous.
loved it. Thank you very much.
You're a blessing to my ears.
Oh, thank you so much.
Yeah, it is a blessing.
Okay,
Okay, have a
Shabbat
good
Shalom.
Shabbat, everybody. Shabbat
Shalom.
Shalom. Bye-bye.
In the world,
Shabbat Shalom.
it will be a blessing. They said she's a blessing. I should have thought of that.
Shabbat Shalom. Be well.
Blessing.
Joan, are you still there? Friedman? No? Okay. Hi, everybody. Bye.